Have you heard, Will, of this new trend, hot new trend? It's called dopamine fasting. Don't lie. I mean, if you heard of it, just tell me you heard of it. If you haven't, tell the truth, of course.
Dopamine fasting.
You heard of this or no?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, look, the New York Times wants some money from you right now. They say you read too many.
This is too much.
They said that you read too many articles. Well, actually, they don't really have to see it. The headline is probably good enough. How to feel nothing now in order to feel more later. So that's basically the concept. Oh, you just have to shrink it down. Now you can read it. Well, that guy is obviously dopamine fasting. You can tell because of the pattern behind his head there. That's right. He's obviously dopamine fasting with the tablecloth behind his head. You can see that's bliss. What you're looking at there is bliss. That's fast day.
A little curl.
So I'll explain it to you just so you don't have to even read the thing. That's kind of the whole point here. This is supposedly a new idea out of Silicon Valley in which you would intentionally eliminate opportunities for stimulation in order to avoid elevating your baseline state where it then becomes more difficult for anything to feel worthwhile. The more you... The problem with it is the word dopamine is really not how dopamine works, but it sounds good. And as you move through the article here, they say it's a misnomer to use that terminology to describe it, which is why I'm saying stimulation. It is a key part of how we feel pleasure, but they're just eliminating stimulation. And then as a consequence, potentially dopamine, I suppose. So, but they took it to an extreme level. Fasting, because eating is too, talking, no, because that would stimulate too much. And they're trying to get feeling back, Will, because they can't feel anymore. It's been too much pleasure.
Too much indulgent behavior.
Pleasure.
Yes.
They tried to tamp the pleasure. They would not eat for days, intermittent fasting. They would not look at screens, digital detox. And then it turns out life was still too good and too pleasurable. So they got rid of everything. What does he say here? He says, because we're getting so much of it all the time, he's talking about dopamine, we end up just wanting more and more. So activities that used to be pleasurable now aren't. Frequent stimulation of dopamine gets the brain's baseline higher. That's one of the founders of this group, James Sinka. And there's a growing audience apparently for this, including a startup investor and professor at UCSF Medical School. He also considers himself a dopamine faster. Yeah. And the New York Times is the one, by the way, that claimed this is more of a stimulation fast than a dopamine fast, because dopamine is a mechanism that explains how addictions can become reinforced. But it does sound better, dopamine fasting. Somehow sounds better or more scientific or more serious. On a recent cool morning, Mr. Sink and his startup co-founder were beginning their fast. He was wearing water shoes and a cable knit sweater that morning, as you would if you were a dopamine faster. They would not be eating. They would be not be looking at screens. They would not be listening to music. No exercise. They would not touch other bodies for any reason. Or their own, I presume. No work, no eye contact, no talking more than absolutely necessary. Yeah, no eye contact. That's too stimulating, Kirk. You know what? I think people on the internet living modern lives have bumped into some real strange biological issues. They've gone to some weird places and stayed there and made it consistent enough to actually rewire themselves. Mm-hmm. And then you get to these extreme scenarios where you gotta do equally weird things to rewire. But as catchy as this all is, it kind of seems like something that's always been there, which is meditation or isolation, or like the religious dudes, the monks. What are they doing? That's a dopamine fast. What are they doing? They're not stimulated. They're intentionally avoiding stimulation. They're doing the same thing.
Right. But this is very intense.
It's
Like
not more
not
intense than
looking
the
at.
monk. It's not more intense. The monk,
Well, I mean, they eat. They
they eat
they can
bland.
look
They
at
eat
they can
bland to
look at each other.
survive.
Well, these guys say that. I mean, you said that they don't eat. They don't look at each other.
Intermittently. Obviously, they eat.
Yeah.
But intermittently, they take the eating off. I'm sure monks intermittently fast too, probably.
Yeah.
I would guess that they would. And they're not even living in a regular world. So these guys say, we still also live our regular lives. And we walk around the streets trying not to look at people.
Is that even harder for them because they're living in reality?
Well, I think you
and
could
not in
argue
the
it's even more stimulating.
Yeah.
Because now you're walking around the streets trying not to look, and you're playing these games in Metal
Yeah.
Gear Solid. Do you remember Metal Gear Solid, Will?
Of course.
Of course you do. So anyway, people have been skeptical of this article, but at least, I don't know. I guess people are trying. Life is getting weird in 2019. It's hard to say one way or the other. I think the point being is unplugging is probably a good idea. I don't know you have to go to this extremity. This is very bizarre. You get to the bottom of this article and you get to this creepy story over here.
I thought you were gonna.
The other day,
creepy
Mr.
guy.
Cinca ran into an old friend, but had to tell her they could not continue speaking. I hadn't seen her in 6 months, and it was extraordinarily exciting, super stimulating, and I could feel how excited I was. So I had to cut it off, and I just said, listen, it's not you, it's me doing this dopamine fast. You definitely get a second date after that one.
Man.
Yeah, it doesn't, it's obviously, you're intentionally making it less compatible with real life. Why not say, hey man, I need to unplug. And instead of reaching for your screen or your junk food, you go for a walk or you just mix it up. Do something other than where you're getting that dopamine hit or stimulation from.
Yeah, it doesn't have to go to that extreme.
Target those things. I understand the appeal by making it a fast and making it this cold
It's a
turkey.
statement.
It's a statement, but also you might be more likely to follow it because these things are addictive. Smartphones are addictive. The internet is addictive, and everything that's on there is addictive. And stimulation is addictive. So I get the premise. I just feel it's one of these situations where Silicon Valley has a way of taking some old concept and making it seem, rebranding it into something
New age.
that's right,
Modern.
to something startup-y.
Yes, definitely.
And in reality, people have been struggling with this since the beginning. It may be more amplified now, but people have had strange addictions since there's been people. And I think people have combated that in many ways since there's been people, including through techniques like meditation and all the various religions that were generated out of similar scenarios. So take a deep breath. You take one of those, man. You take one of those every so often. You hit the reset. You put it down. Exercise discipline in general. Watch yourself in control. It's empowering. Take a break. I want people to go for a walk every so often, or at least go outdoors. Just spend a little time early in a brisk morning. Will,
Oh yeah.
check it out.
This morning.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Check out a brisk morning. What do you want to say to the people? That's it for me.
Have a good day. Today's Friday. Have a good weekend. Take care.
There you have it.